Hi and welcome to Full Circle. I'm Emily Wilmson with the City of Fort Collins, and we're here today to talk about the Foothills Mall redevelopment. I have joining me today Tom Leasing, Redevelopment Manager for the Urban Renewal Authority for the city. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you.
And I have on my right here John Gaffney, who is the General Manager for the Foothills Mall. Thank you, John, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Emily. Nice to be here.
So I see there's a ton of stuff going on at the mall. What's the latest and greatest happening with the mall redevelopment?
Well, there's a lot going on right now. We're pretty much under full redevelopment, full swing, almost at the peak of what you'll see happening. Now the mall is still open. I want to make sure everybody knows that. And we do still have 13 tenants still operating, including Macy's and Victoria's Secret. So we're still dealing with shoppers and running an operating center. But in the midst of that, of course, the big development project's happening. So kind of a quick update. We've pretty much finished most of the demolition. What you'll see now if you were to drive by today is finishing up on the Sears building. It's about 75% down. And we'll be wrapping that up in the next week or so, next couple weeks. Okay. And then inside the mall, if you come into the main concourse, you'll see we've got from 12 feet and above, the whole inside is finished, basically. The new clear store windows and the new roof and ceiling inside. And we're now reaching a point where we've come in vertical out of the ground on the east side of the property with the new theater, the Cinemark Theater, as well as the big parking garage that we're doing. So you also see, if you drive along College, a lot of those shops are starting to, in various stages of completion. Some of them are actually being turned over to tenants as we speak, like Chico's will be opening in their new spot within the next week or so, and work continues. So.
Okay, great. So if you go inside the mall, you were saying you can now see the whole mall isn't finished on the interior, but you can see a sample of what it's going to look like right there in front of Macy's.
That's right. We're still using a temporary entrance just a little bit west of where the main Grand Court entry will end up being. When you walk into that tunnel, you'll come out into the main concourse and you'll look up and you'll see, again, from 12 feet and above, basically from Macy's down to about where Sears used to be. That is pretty much finished. So all the new design, the new timber framing that we've done in there, the new aesthetic that we came up with is very evident to the public. So, and we'll start to tie that in with tenant storefronts as they start to open this summer and fall. So.
Okay, so much of the construction has been so far confined to the site itself, but there are going to be some major public improvements coming. Tom, can you talk a little bit about what some of those are and how the city is involved in this?
You bet. So this has been a partnership with Alberta Development Partners and Walton Capital. And part of the public assistance package was some pretty major public improvements. They include the Foothills Activity Center, which is a replacement of the old Youth Activity Center. It'll be attached to the mall and the parking garage, and that's a 24,000 square foot activity center with a gymnasium, and it'll be owned and operated by the city's recreation department. So we're excited about that. I think construction is starting on that. Piers are being poured, so that construction commences. There will also be a pedestrian underpass going underneath College Avenue, connecting the Mason corridor and the BRT, so pedestrians and bicyclists can go right underneath College Avenue and connect right into the mall property. And construction should be starting here in the next month or so on that as well. So we're excited about that, and those are important projects for the city and for Midtown as well. So.
And just to clarify, BRT, Bus Rapid Transit, and MAX, basically what we're talking about, connecting people to MAX.
That's right.
And I also noticed the old mall didn't have sidewalks on College. It was hard for pedestrians and bicyclists to get onto the property.
Yes. So as part of that public assistance package, there was $53 million. Only 8 of that goes to those 2 projects that I just referenced. The rest goes to other infrastructure improvements that include sidewalk improvements, stormwater. The old mall had no real stormwater treatment facilities on there. Now there's going to be all sorts of detention ponds and bioswales. So there's a lot that goes into that public improvement that is underground, that we won't be able to see. The FAC, Foothills Activity Center, and the underpass are kind of the eye candy. Everything else is underground for those improvements. So.
And some of the other tenants coming into the mall are going to be, speaking of eye candy, we've heard Nordstrom Rack, and who are some of the other new faces coming to the mall?
We did an announcement back in January of a first wave of tenants, and you mentioned Nordstrom Rack, some of the other big ones, H&M, very popular store. will be coming in. They'll be located out in the west main entry of the mall, taking up a nice big space there. Bar Louie, Grimaldi's Pizza. We just launched our website, shopfoothills.com, and all the tenant announcements as well as current tenants that are open can be found there. So that'd be a good place to reference everything. I don't want to shortchange anybody.
Right, exactly. And I know there's new announcements coming all the time, and those, of course, don't come from the city. We rely on the developer to make those announcements. But
that's right. And we, just to speak a little bit to that, because that's probably the most common question we get from operationally at the mall. We work very hard, obviously, recruiting tenants that we think are going to be a fit in Fort Collins. And our leasing team, Don Provost and Laura Hansen, are doing a great job. We've got announcements coming all through the year. You know, typically what happens, we basically are at the will of the tenant. When they want to announce it and they give us the permission, that's when we can do it. So rest assured, there's a lot of deals out there that are being worked on, and those announcements will be coming throughout the spring and summer.
And so we know, just generally speaking, retail announcements you tend to announce a bunch at once. Is that because, how does retail leasing work? I mean, does one tenant only go in if another tenant agrees to be in the same block? Or, I mean, can you give people some background on why that happens like that?
That's a good question. Typically what you'll see is a lot of these tenants, you may not realize it based on their name brand, but like a Victoria's Secret and a Bath & Body Works. Those are owned by the same parent company, so limited brands. So a lot of times you'll work on a package of deals, and they'll all want to come in together. And then there are other smaller retailers that have kind of a formula where they fit in centers that have X, Y, and Z tenants in place already. So it's in many ways a domino effect. You start to see a Nordstrom Rack and H&M come in, and then you sort of fill in the blanks after that. So there is an element to that, as well as just timing-wise. A lot of these tenants are, we're coming off the holiday season here, and now they're starting to, in earnest, start to look at new deals this year with the goal of opening by holiday 2015. So there's a calendar piece to it, there's a strategic piece to it, and it's got to work for us as landlord and what we think this market will bear. So. Okay,
great. And Tom, talk a little bit about, I know the city isn't in control of tenants, but we've had some say through the redevelopment agreement with tenant mix, right? What is it that the developer is required to do as far as tenants and kind of what happens, who leases there? Right.
Well, as part of the redevelopment agreement, there's a couple components to that question. The public assistance money that they were provided through the city through the redevelopment agreement was released in sort of tranches, which is called sort of lump sums, if you will, and that was directly tied to their leasing performance. So as they lease up a certain square footage, they get the next tranche. And in addition to that, there was a strong desire that the tenants don't just come from existing places within Fort Collins. So we really wanted to have new tenants. So there's certain requirements that are tied to new tenants to the market or new tenants to Fort Collins as well. So we didn't stipulate the names or anything like that, but it was more square footages and timing of the public money tied to leasing.
Right, and it sounds like that's already occurred. Obviously, some of the new tenants are being announced, and
yes.
Talk a little bit, John, about or Tom, either one of you, but it isn't just going to be a retail center. There's going to be more activity, like kind of parks and other green spaces in there. Like, what will you see when you come up from under the underpass up onto the mall property?
Right. Well, so in general, our Alberta Development Partners and our founding principal, Don Provost, he's very big on common areas, a sense of place and community, and just a real nice aesthetic outside with fountains that will convert into like ice skating rinks during the winter, immaculately kept lawns where we can do concerts and 5K races, stuff like that. So when you enter the site, it'll look nothing like what people are used to in the past at Foothills, and especially right now, being that it's a full-on construction zone. So we expect it'll be beautiful, and it'll just really enhance what Midtown is becoming.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, it's much more than a retail destination. It's really a retail and entertainment destination with the restaurants and the activity center. And we should also mention that there's a plan for 450 residential units too. So it really is, at the end, a mixed-use center. that'll be very active with a lot of different types of activities, including the retail component.
So that raises a good point. This notion of redevelopment and why is that so critical at that site? Why not just build a new mall on the edge of town? Why do redevelopment? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very important goal for the city of Fort Collins, redevelopment, and primarily because it's such an efficient use of what already exists in terms of embodied energy, infrastructure, and the city of Fort Collins has established an urban growth boundary. So the city, through its planning process, has said we're not going to grow out anymore, we're going to grow up. So redevelopment is very important for that, and intensification of the land use within the urban core is one of the primary goals of the city, which is why we built the bus rapid transit system to allow an improved infrastructure or transportation infrastructure. It's a more efficient use of the land, improving the pedestrian connections, and having more of a mixed use with residential, office, retail, all within the urban core is part of the sort of the national movement of smart growth, and is one of the primary goals of the city.
So we were just talking about Midtown. What's happening in Midtown? There's some activity as a result of the mall, or is that activity helping the mall to redevelop, or what's going on there?
Well, from my perspective, I think it's a combination of things. I mean, it was always intended and believed that the mall would act as a catalyst for redevelopment, and in Midtown. And Midtown is described as going essentially from Prospect along College Avenue all the way down to south of Harmony to the South Transit Center. So it's a large area when we talk about Midtown. And so the redevelopment of the mall was really a catalyst project, and we're seeing that with the redevelopment of the square, which is immediately next door, which are Trader Joe's and Sierra Trading Post is going in addition to the bus rapid transit. That was another major catalyst project for Midtown, as we're starting to see a lot of redevelopment and residential development occurring along that major transportation spine. So again, I think it goes back to the city's overall vision for redevelopment along its major spine, College Avenue, and we're starting to see the reality of those goals coming to fruition. So.
And John, what do you see or what do you hear from your tenants about that? Maybe new people coming in, and are they noticing this, or or even some of the surrounding businesses? Is there excitement building
Absolutely.
about Midtown?
Big time. To speak to what Tom said, the square is a big deal I think for everybody in Midtown, and it's nice to have them just literally right across the street from us. And Trader Joe's opening, and Sierra Trading Post is a great draw. I mean, I've never driven through that parking lot and not seen it pretty much packed. So it's been great. Our friends over at the Marriott are very excited about this project. I mean, they're literally like right next door and across the street from the big Cinemark theater that's going up. So the amenities that it's going to offer their guests, they're very excited about. Current tenants are ecstatic. I mentioned Chico's earlier, but they're moving over to that new building, and there's a palpable sense of excitement, I think, from all of our tenants. Macy's is, they love seeing this thing getting going. So it's just it should be what's the phrase? A rising tide raises all ships. So I think that's sort of the outlook that we have all along the corridor.
So when the mall opens at the end of this year, at the end of 2015, you said around the holiday season, there will still be some construction going on next year,
yes.
Right? Can you talk a little bit about the housing piece that's going to be happening?
Right. Well, so we'll have a major portion of the retail will be done this holiday. So and that as tenants start to open up for the 2015 holiday season, you'll still see construction going on in that wing where the old Sears used to be. Okay. That will be a big wing of the mall with a junior anchor that we're bringing down, which is actually going to be Sports Authority, who's got to leave their Mulberry Street location. They elected to come down and join our project. So that will actually continue into spring of 2016, and as that retail wraps up. There'll probably also be a couple outbuildings, like separate buildings out on the northwest corner, kind of in that ring where Nordstrom Rack is opening, as well as some of the college shops you'll start to see buttoned up into next year. Christie Sports would be a good example. They're on our property and they have a lease that they're going to stick with us until next summer, and then that building can be brought down and a new building in its place that will match the college shops. So you'll still see a component of retail construction into next spring and summer. And then the residential piece will likely kick off sometime, early. You start to see a lot of some of the groundwork, like Tom mentioned earlier. There's a lot of things that go on that you don't really see. So the underground utilities, the site work, that type of thing. For the residential piece will actually start to kick off this fall, late summer and fall into the winter of 2015 into early 2016. You'll start to see some activity as far as the construction on the residential pieces.
Okay, but for the most part, when people go back, or I would say when you have majority of your tenants in there by the end of the year, you'll be able to circulate around the mall, drive around it like you used to. The public improvements will largely be in place, Tom? Is that kind of what we're talking about?
In fact, the Foothills Activity Center grand opening will be on the same day as the main mall grand opening. So we're hoping to coordinate those events.
So one thing we should probably talk about a little bit is the financing for the public improvements. How is that the $53 million commitment from the city? That doesn't come out of the city's budget.
It does not.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk about where that money comes from and how that works.
Well, there was a creation of a metro district by the ownership by Alberta Development Partners through the approval of the city. And that allowed, as you indicated, for $53 million of public assistance. So there was a $53 million bond, essentially, which is a loan, part of the debt for the project, that is paid back through 4 different revenue sources. There's the tax increment financing, which is through the Urban Renewal Authority, which is a mechanism that we capture the net new property taxes and sales taxes, or the incremental increase, which is why it's called tax increment, and then that revenue is helped to pay off the bonds. There's also a property tax that's levied by the Metro District on their own property. So that property tax is then also used to pay off the bonds, as well as a public improvement fee, which is essentially a private sales tax that they impose on the purchase of the goods from the tenants. And then finally, there is a pledge of sales tax from the city to pay off the revenue. So there's 4 different revenue sources, all which are created by the project itself. So it's nothing coming out of the city. It's all revenue created by the project to pay off the loans for the project itself. So.
Okay, and that was all negotiated by City Council and done through the redevelopment
agreement? It was all approved, right, through the redevelopment agreement and approved by City Council and the Urban Renewal Authority.
Okay, and the ongoing maintenance operations will be handled by the Metro District? Is that how that works?
It is, yep. So all of the operations and maintenance are funded through the Metro District, and they'll be maintaining all of the grounds in addition to the underpass. And so the Foothills Activity Center will be owned and operated by the city, but the rest of the grounds are owned by the Metro District and Alberta Development Partners.
Only exception being Macy's, who owns their own pad site and some parking area. So.
Okay, and Foothills Activity Center, you'll be able to come in from the parking garage, but also through the mall. Is that right? Is there entrances in both?
Yes, we will have an external entrance in the direction of where the parking garage is, out to the east side. Then there'll also be an interior exit, exit and entry, which is right now, if you can, just to get a feel for where it would be, if you went down to Macy's Court and then headed down that corridor towards where our current tenant Zoomies is, it'll be down at the end of that hallway there. So sort of heading out on the east end of the enclosed mall.
Okay, that'll be a big change for the public to actually probably be get more involved, I should say, in that youth activity center, because it really has been directed at youth in the past, but it's going to be more of an open to all recreators. Is that?
Yes, they're going to have a full program of both youth and adult sports activities, and it'll be a great addition to the city's recreation assets, and very much needed in that part of town. So the city's very excited about that.
It'll be great to see.
Yeah.
And I think a conscious effort was actually made to start calling it the Foothills Activity Center. I still call it the Youth Activity Center, but it is truly a Foothills Activity Center. It's a full service to the public recreational facility. So we're excited to have it on site.
Yeah, that'll be great. You can work out over your lunch hour.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Great. Well, looks like we're about out of time, so just a few closing thoughts. It seems like this is an exciting project. John, would you like to offer any closing remarks about
Well, I would just say, in general, we're starting to ramp up and get ready for the grand open, even though we're still, 8 months or so away. But we just wanted to mention, I said it earlier, we just launched our shopfoothills.com website. I want to make sure that we steer everybody, the public and whoever's watching, go check that site out. There's a ton of resources. We keep all of our new tenant announcements up there. We also have a lot of interactive things where the public and citizens can sign up for monthly newsletters, and we'll keep you updated. There's a direct link to us and our staff to talk to us and ask questions. If you're interested in leasing, there are ways to get in touch with us there. So I would end with that and just say how happy we are to be partnering with the city, and it's looking like a great project.
Great. And Tom, any thoughts from you?
Well, I would just say that this is a great project for the city of Fort Collins, and we understand that there's a lot of construction going on, and there will continue to be a lot of construction, and we thank the public for being patient with that. We'll continue to try to post things on the website, make sure everybody's aware of what's happening, and we look forward to the final product next holiday season.
And we're trying to keep up to date on the public improvements at fcgov.com/Foothills Mall, so people can go there, not so much to see tenants and tenant announcements. You can obviously go to the mall website for that, but mostly keep people informed about some of the public improvements. So.
That's right.
Great. Well, thank you both for coming. I really appreciate it. It was great having you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us in Full Circle. We'll see you next month.